Most watch collecting advice is straight up wrong, backwards. The typical advice is that you need a diver and a GMT and a chronograph and a dress watch and a GADA and a field watch. But why should everyone need the same categories when everyone's life is actually different and their tastes are different? So what I've done is I've pulled a bunch of data and a bunch of research from psychology, behavioral economics, consumer science, finance, etc. And I've turned these into rules for maximizing the long-term enjoyment while minimizing the regret and wasted money when building a collection. There's going to be 6 rules and then a bonus round at the end where I do some rapid fire rules as well. Let's figure it out. Oh yeah. Rule number 1, and I think the most important rule, is to make your mistakes cheaply. Early collecting is about preference discovery. Assume you're going to be wrong on some things. And there's a lot of data on this. Research on preference development found that inexperienced consumers' preferences became more stable with repeated decisions and experience. In one study, choices inconsistent with a participant's eventual preference fell from 60% to 49% over a very short period of time. In other words, you actually learn what you like through experience and you learn pretty fast. But because these are watches, resale losses can be huge and vary enormously by brand and model. The moment you take a lot of watches out of the AD, out of the store, they lose 30 to 40% of their resale value. And that's a huge investment. And I know what you might be saying. Isaac, I buy watches used. In fact, I just resold a watch and made $100. That's great, but there was still a huge opportunity cost to that money. That money could have done a lot more for you. If you take that same $10,000 and you put it in the market at a 7% return for 30 years, that's $75,000. So an expensive collecting mistake has a large lifetime financial impact, much larger than its initial sticker price suggests. So my recommendations are start cheap. Start with micro watches. These are really fun watches and they actually have an enormous amount of design variety that you actually don't find in more expensive watches. So you can really figure out what you like. And the blast radius of wasting this money is really low because it's just, these are cheaper watches. Used watches can be your friend. Learn how to buy cheap watches, but also have an exit plan before you purchase a watch. Really know how you are going to sell a watch and how much you're going to lose if you sell a watch before you buy it. Decide what you're willing to lose as tuition for learning your taste. You're supposed to make mistakes. Just don't make $15,000 mistakes, whether you're figuring out whether you like sailcloth or rubber. Rule number 2 is to set a hard cap to the size of your watch collection. When you have an actual constraint on the size of the collection, you are going to make much better and much more difficult decisions. And there's a ton of data backing this. 2024 research found that simply adopting a collector's mindset shifted people towards hedonic evaluation. It made them less price sensitive. It increased the amount of spending that they did. And you see this a lot in watches where you will end up spending so much more money on watches than you ever thought you would, than you ever thought you could on anything. And putting a hard cap on the size of your collection will help with that quite a bit. Additionally, it will make the quality of your collection much better. There is a boatload of research on constraints and creativity. There's over 100 papers and they're easily reproducible that show that putting constraints on a rule set or on something shows a positive increase in association with creative performance. In other words, when you put limits on yourself, you make better decisions. So my recommendation is to pick the maximum collection size before you encounter your next watch, before you even add it to the wish list. Never increase your watch collection size just because you found watch number 7. Instead of saying, do I like a Speedmaster? You should say, what watch in my collection am I willing to actually throw out in order to be able to buy this Speedmaster? And that will make you actually question if you want it enough. This video is brought to you by you. If you subscribe to this channel, I'm trying to create this content full time. I'm trying to make more of it. If you subscribe, if you like, if you comment, that creates so much lift for the channel and it helps me immensely. Thank you. Rule 3 is to not confuse satiation with falling out of love. Repeated exposure to something that you genuinely like will make that thing less rewarding. If you wear a watch you love all the time, it'll stop giving you that excitement. And humans are really bad at appreciating how much a break can restore enjoyment. And there's tons of data here. Basically, they fed them a bunch of chocolate and then they asked them how much they enjoyed the chocolate. And if they kept eating chocolate, they enjoyed it less. And if they took a break, they enjoyed it more again. And actually, they were not able to anticipate how much that break would restore their enjoyment to the thing. So watches are the same thing. If you woke up and you just Not feeling this watch anymore? Don't panic sell it. Take it out of rotation, put it in the closet for 2 or 3 months, and then come back to it. Don't force yourself to wear it. And you will find that maybe you like the watch actually a lot more than you remember. Rule number 4 is to buy for your taste and aesthetics. So you need to figure out your own aesthetic preferences here and what you actually like. There's a ton of studies on this, about 50 studies that show there's a very good relationship between self-congruity, basically how aligned this is with who you are, and consumer outcomes, basically how much you ended up enjoying the thing over a longer period of time. So your perceived identity is what's going to be what you enjoy over a longer period of time. And a lot of people bias for diversification. This is awesome study that basically they had people choose snacks for the following days ahead of time, right? So Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, they had them choose all the snacks on Monday. And what they found is when they chose the snacks in advance, about 2/3 chose 3 different snacks across the day because they thought they would want some variety. But when they took people and they had them on the day of choose a snack, so on Tuesday they choose a snack, on Wednesday they choose a snack, on Thursday, only 9% chose 3 different snacks. Most of them chose the same snack across all 3 days. And your watches are going to be the same thing. You think that you need the blue watch and the purple watch and the red watch and the green watch and the pink watch. But really, if you know who you are and what aesthetics align to you, you're going to choose something that's more aligned for yourself. So look at your preferences in clothing, look at your preferences in cars, in aesthetics and design and decoration and all those different areas. And use that to figure out what types of aesthetics are going to resonate with you every day, because this is something that you're going to be looking at a ton. Rule 5 is to collect use cases, not complications. When you first start getting into watch collecting, you get a lot of advice of you need a diver and you need a GMT and you need a chronograph and you need a dress watch and you need a field watch and you need all these different types of watches. And I get that they're trying to provide variety there, but they're building a collection around things you don't actually need. When was the last time that you actually crossed time zones so many times that, man, you needed a true GMT, not an office GMT, to be able to actually track this? How often are you actually putting on a suit and, going to a dressy event where you really need a dress watch? Only about 27% of Americans reported attending a wedding in the previous year. You spend most of your time at work. You spend most of your time in leisure or around the house or running errands. Build a collection that serves those. So ask yourself, what situations actually occur in my life? And then build stories around them. Make them very specific, right? Saturday morning coffee, gym and errands, and then playing PS5. Your 2-week European vacation with tons of walking and occasional swimming. The nice dinner with your wife where you're wearing a jacket, but you're not wearing a tie. And then the beach day where you don't give a crap and maybe the watch, slips off in the waves and you don't care. And the idea here is to turn watches into something experiential, because consumers show a ton of resonance with experiential spending. You are going to enjoy it more. We're taking these watches and we're making them an intimate thing because we're actually creating autobiographical cues that tie these watches to core memories. And that's what makes you smile when you look at them. I have this one watch and it's not a valuable watch, but it's valuable to me because it was the first watch I wore with my girlfriend on our first vacation together. And anytime I wear it, I ask her, what does this remind you of? And she says, oh, our trip to Austin. And that's cool to me because it's made this watch actually more valuable. So before you buy a watch, ask yourself, what situation does this serve? How often does this situation occur? What watch currently serves it and does it already do it well? Is this creating a genuinely new experience for me, or am I merely subdividing an existing category? A watch with a job has a much better chance of eventually becoming a watch with memories. Rule number 6, and it is mind-blowing, is to wear your favorite watch less. And that might be considered a hot take, but there's a ton of data backing this on increasing enjoyment. Here's an experiment I really like. Researchers took people, they took a song that they really liked, and they played it for those people multiple times. Obviously, the people enjoyed the song less. They didn't want to listen to it anymore. And then the researchers gave them a break. And then after that break, they came back and they had some level of recovery in how much they enjoyed the song, but only about half of that enjoyment gap ended up being recovered. Now, they took other people, a different group, and they played them different music during that break. And when they came back, they found that they liked the song again. Almost complete recovery in how much they liked the song. There's a ton of experiments that show these types of things. Hedonic adaptation gets disrupted through variation in experiences. Your brain normalizes extraordinary things, and that applies to watches as well. Wearing your favorite watch every day will make it feel ordinary. And if you take a break, if you force it not to have dominant wrist time, you will actually end up having more net enjoyment. So the recommendation here is to not distribute wrist time equally, to rotate your watches and maybe make sure that you're rotating things equally. I actually built an app for this myself months ago because I found that really nothing on the market covered what I needed of tracking wears in different use cases and when was the last time I wore a watch in a specific use case. You can actually download this app on the App Store and soon to be the Google Play Store. Check the description to see if it's in there. I don't charge money for this app yet. I found it really helped me. So there are the core 6 rules for building a watch collection. I do have those rapid fire rules I talked about before though, so let's get into them. Buy straps before watches. If you're feeling like you need something else, go and buy a bunch of straps off AliExpress. They're going to be $5 a piece. Are they going to be great? No. Are they going to be good enough? Yes. Just go buy a bunch. Number 2 is to not make your first watch your GADA watch. Your go anywhere, do anything watch is very sensible, but it should become a little bit later and treat it more as a gap filler than a collection creator. Number 3, don't buy a cheaper version of the watch you actually want, assuming you will ever be able to afford that watch. It will always feel like you settled. Number 4, don't buy 2 watches to solve one problem. Number 5, resist the urge to consolidate. If you take your collection of 6 down to a collection of 2, you're going to feel like you want to fill that watch box back up, and then those new 4 that you bring in won't be able to match up to the other 2. And there you have it. Those are the rules for creating a watch collection. Now, I want to hear from you guys. I am going to be reviewing people's collections in upcoming videos, so please subscribe, and then in the comments, put your collection if you'd like me to review it, and I will do so. Thanks so much. Adios.